Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today, our special guest is Emmitt Muckles, and I've known Emmitt for quite a while. The story of how I met Emmitt is kind of interesting. I can't remember what year it was, but I was doing a class out in Detroit. It was some suburb, I guess, was it, Emmitt?
Yes, I think we were actually in Detroit.
Yeah, it was like this place, and it was this thing called Green Energy Leadership Training. And I think it had something to do with Global Exchange, which is some kind of famous nonprofit, and they called it GELT. And I got out there to do a class, and I think even Solar Living Institute hooked me up with this class. And I don't know, it's like maybe 12 years ago or something like that.
Yeah,
I think, you know what?
It was a while ago.
Now that I think of it, like 2011, I think, something like that.
Yeah, because I was with Fronius.
Yeah.
And we were still in Michigan at that time.
Yeah, and so I remember I drove to the place the day before the class just to check it out, and it was like there was potholes that could swallow your car.
Welcome to Detroit.
And I was like, whoa, and it just seemed like kind of a scary neighborhood. And then I drove up there the morning before the class, and then there's like all these people that are sort of like young hippie types standing on their heads doing yoga in the lawn.
Yeah. So I'm going to explain it to you like my daughter, who's 32, explained it to me. She said, because, you know, Detroit had this mass exodus in the 60s and 70s. And so there was a lot of houses that got abandoned and neighborhoods that went to decay. And my daughter explained it to me. She said, Daddy, we can't afford these houses in the suburbs. So we have to go where we can afford. So we'll move down into the city. A bunch of us will buy like a 2-family flat house, live in it, fix it up, and then we make the neighborhood. So that's probably what you're seeing. Like people were living where they could afford.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting. And then I remember like we didn't have air conditioning. And so we were doing the class outside, and they had, it was like a big house that a bunch of people were living in. It was like super run down. And then during class, you could hear houses collapsing like in the other parts of the neighborhood. And you could go on to Zillow and see that there was houses that were literally $1, that you could buy a house for $1. And
yeah,
you probably know a lot more about that than I do because you're.
Yeah, we were coming out of, I mean, at that time, Detroit was coming out of the recession of 2008. So a lot of people lost their houses. A lot of people lost everything that they were worth. And Detroit was heavily affected by that. And so, you know, people were just like, they just left their homes. So the city would actually take those homes back so they could get the tax money and sell them for $1. Because just think about it, Sean. If you and I are sitting out in the suburbs and our house costs $250,000 to $500,000, I can buy my kid a house in Detroit. We can fix it up. Now they have a starting tax base.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what was happening.
Oh, yeah. It's better than the houses collapsing. And then probably then you have to upkeep the house. So like if it collapses and you own it, they'll be like, you got to fix this. It's dangerous or something, you know?
Actually, I'm with a co-op. I'm on the board of directors for a co-op. And I have that exact thing happening. A house is literally collapsing and I have to take care of it.
And so I'm on the lawn teaching this class to a bunch of like young change the world types. And it's a really hot day. And then I hear the sound of a gunshot. And then a girl like passes out. And I was like, I thought she got hit by a stray bullet, but she had a heat stroke. and, and so it was kind of crazy. And then I'm not sure if that was the day that you came or anything. But then I remember you came with the Fronius inverters, and that was really cool. And that was when I met you. And that's when our history started. So that was pretty cool.
And back then, you were an avant-garde trainer. And I didn't even know anything about this. Actually, it was like a couple years later that I started to really watch what you did. And then we had a crossing again when I was at Sunrun, because we brought you in for some people. And this is funny because when I was at Sunrun was kind of an insular to the solar industry, like they stay self-contained. So they didn't really know a whole lot about me, my prior experience. And then you come in and you're like, we want to get this guy, Sean Wayne. I'm like, yeah, Sean's cool. And you came in and you did the training for some of the technicians. And then you said the coolest thing that made me smile that day. So you're sitting in a room with all these technicians and they're looking at you like, Sean White. And you go, well, if you want to know about inverters, ask that guy. He's the expert. They
Good.
were like,
Yeah.
huh?
Well, I mean, you work for an inverter company. You know what's going on inside of those things.
It's not even that. When I came to Fronius, I didn't know anything about solar. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I remember it was about 2 weeks in, and I still didn't understand how the technology worked. So what I did was I asked my boss, Mo Mahone, I said, I'm going to check out 3 inverters. And I checked out the inverters and I went into a conference room and I started taking them apart just to see the circuitry and look at how. And then I realized something. They work exactly like car amplifiers do. They take a DC voltage in, convert it to AC, except car amplifiers convert it back to DC for the amplification part. But in that moment, I knew everything that I needed to know about these things, or pretty much the guts of it, and everything else just fell into place after that.
I wonder if I could put in like a cassette tape into my car stereo, if they still make those, and play a certain frequency, and all of a sudden it would be an inverter. Just like put the sound of a sine wave in there.
You know what? In actuality, you would need some extra circuitry. You'd have to have your speakers tied to transformers, and you'd have to have a high current amplifier for your output of your radio. But it could work because car amplifiers literally work in that kind of a way. They have an inverter built inside them that they switch that DC 12 volts upwards to 200 volts negative and positive. They switch it to
Wow.
AC, high frequency, and then they switch it back to DC, which gives you a positive and negative rail for your amplification. So when you hear those cars go boom down your street, they're using inverter technology. And the louder it is, the bigger those rails are, upwards to like 300 volts plus and minus.
So if I took apart a Fronius inverter that you were working on, will I find an 8-track tape?
No, you'll you'll find a reel to reel.
A reel to reel. Okay. All right. That's classic. I remember I used to do reel to reel when I was a little kid. It was like my mom had one or something that was probably handed down to her from her grandparents or something like that. And it was fun. I'd be like threading the reels and all that.
No, I had an uncle who's an audiophile and he had everything. So I understood. And I was a DJ too. That's why you see me wearing hearing aids now, because I blew my ears out. But one thing that
What?
I wanted to.
Oh, I did that too, but I just did it at concerts. What? What?
Yeah, literally, I watch people's mouths. One thing I wanted to do is you're kind of an inspiration to me. And I'm
Oh,
going to tell you
likewise.
why. Because you said, look, here's what I love to do. I love solar. I love training. I'm going to put them together like an Oreo cookie and make something. And that is such an inspiration to me because you and I share the same passion where you love training, you love solar and people, you're putting them together, and you became what, here's the term that I'm coming up with, fractional training.
Huh. Okay. Let's hear
So
it.
fractional training is if you're in a company and they have a trainer, that's not a fractional trainer. All they do is train on a specific item. But you and I, as fractional trainers, we have the ability to adapt and to mold to any situation. So someone could say, hey, I need to onboard 20 people who are coming in. I need them to know possibly OSHA safety. I need them to know how to install an array, whether that means racking, laying modules, making strings. You can say, okay, who can do that? We don't have anybody in the company that can do that. Oh, I could call Sean White or I can call Emmitt Muckles because they're fractional training. They'll come in and fractionally put our stuff together, implement it, and then they're gone.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah,
Is that-
fractional. Okay. Because when you say fractional, I keep thinking fractional reserve banking, but completely different.
I knew you were going to say that because it came up in my mind when this came about. But fractional training is the thing that you do because you just need a piece of training. You just need a company may need a piece. They may need inverter training. Okay, that's a piece. They may need racking training. That's a piece. They may need monitoring training or remote troubleshooting training. All that is fractional, and they may not be able to get it under one house, or they may not have anybody who can facilitate that. That's where people like you and me come in, and because we are these fractional, not reserve trainers.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, and I remember I did see you at Sunrun, the way that I ended up there was Mark Rodriguez. I'm sure you probably know him. And I think he's working at Solar App now. Is that right? Solar App?
I
I'm
don't
pretty
know.
sure. And then he was working at Sunrun, and he had me teach their designers over in Irvine. And that was super cool. And I went down there a number of times. I remember staying in Laguna Beach when I was there, and it was just like, it was like a real memorable experience. And then he had me come over to Chicago area. I remember it was right by the airport is where their office was. And it
Exactly
was the
right.
guys that meet with the inspectors.
Yes.
That's who he had me training. And so there's all these guys that were just meeting with inspectors. And I went in there and did, I think maybe it was a couple of classes for them. It was really cool. I still have the Sunrun shirt. And so it was a great experience. And then I think you showed me their training roof. So they have like the snapping rack going on there and crayons and stuff like that. It was like in the
Yeah.
back room.
So during that week, you and I were training at the same time. You were training in the front of the office, and I was training in the warehouse. So we had a 47 pitch roof that was like 30 feet tall. And so that's where I would test new installers to see if they had the salt about them. Because I said, and it went from the ground
Say that again. 30 feet high
30 feet high.
and a pitch.
Wait. Yeah, it was about 30 feet high, and it was a 47 pitch because I measured it.
Wow.
It was steep.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So that's like a little bit more than 12 and 12.
Yeah. And then I had like a 22 pitch, which was the actual place where I stored my tools. It was a shed. And then I had probably an 18 pitch, which was on rollers that I could just move around. And so I would get crews of 20, upwards to 20 individuals that I would have to train. And I would segregate groups and make teams and call out people who were supposed to be foremen. So I would name a foreman and at least like 3 or 4 people for that team. I would give them a roof, and then I would give them plan sets for those roofs and say, here's what you're going to build. Let's discuss it. So because it was me and 20 people, I couldn't just be running around. So I would use the foreman as kind of like my training helpers. So I would say, I'm going to communicate to you what you need. You're going to communicate with your team. And then if you need help explaining something, then I'll be right there. And then from there, I just spent the whole day running from roof to roof to roof to roof to roof.
Uh-huh.
And, okay, that's good. That's not good. Okay, that's good. Okay, your penetration's wrong. Hey, wait a minute. Why did you make that hole there? Wait a minute. You don't have a setback. So it was one of those things, and it was exhausting.
Yes, just some things that I still remember that I was told from those people that meet with the inspectors there. I remember when they did a supply side connection, they made them bond neutral to ground at the meter can. I guess that was like a utility thing that they did there.
So when you come to Chicago, Chicago has its own code book. Cook
Yeah.
County has its own code book. One of the things that you'll find that's rare, because I discovered this and I was like, what? Is everything is in conduit and bonding.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is they wouldn't allow EMT, I guess.
Yeah. They allowed rigid.
Yeah.
So you had rigid conduit and everything inside the wall, even in the place we were in, everything inside those walls is inside conduit. And so unless it's a really old home, and this all stems from the Chicago fire from way back when they came out with their own electrical code so that they could prevent fires in homes. So that's why you need rigid.
Oh, the Chicago fire. That's like in the history books, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And that's the reason why it's a little bit different in Cook County. Now, once you get outside of Cook County, they may be adjacent to the code or run off that code. But the further you get away from Chicago, then you start getting to
Do
the
you remember
NEC.
that fire? It was
No,
October 8th, 1871.
no, I was in high school then.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in high school too in 1871. Yep.
But that's the reason they have such stringent codes. Like it's a green NEC book that they update
It's
and
like
go
in
beyond.
1871 that they didn't even have electricity really, right? I mean,
No, because electricity came like around at the turn of the century, early 1900s, when they really started promoting it between Tesla and Edison. Was it then?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was the battle between DC and AC with Edison was a DC person.
They didn't invent electrons yet. We were just using like the humors and the four elements: wood, water, earth, and fire.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fun fact, if you ever go to Detroit, if you ever stay there for a couple of days, go visit the Henry Ford house. It's in Dearborn, Michigan. Henry Ford, his original house is there. Henry Ford was fast friends with Edison. All the electricity that is supplied, or I don't know if it is now, but they still have this. The electricity that was supplied to the house back then was supplied by a dynamo that ran off the Rouge River. So everything in the house was DC.
yeah, so like a dynamo, I'm not sure how it works, but it spins and it makes DC.
Yeah. And that was weird because when I was on the tour with my daughter, they said, yeah, and this is the dynamo. And then you see the Rouge River running and they got this turbine. And I'm just like, what? How is that possible? What are they doing? But, then I read later that Edison and Henry Ford were contemporaries of each other and they spent a lot of time together. So that makes sense because Edison was a DC proponent. He wanted our electric grid to be DC.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Didn't work out.
So who do you like better, Edison or Ford?
That's the good one.
I guess I'll go for Edison just because Ford has kind of a reputation, like World War II.
Oh, he has a reputation, but I'm going to come at it from a different angle. If it wasn't for Henry Ford, my dad probably never would have been an electrician.
Oh,
Him not being an electrician means I wouldn't have done electrical work when I was a kid. Yeah, child labor laws. That's how that works. And I was deeply into the science, and my dad helped bolster that. So, no, I'm not going to choose Ford because he was kind of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Choose Edison.
Yeah, he kind of picked the wrong side there back in the World War II days. So, but then Edison also, he was like kind of stubborn with Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
He should have gone for that alternating current.
Yeah, I mean, they bankrupted him. They were saying the technology was worthless. They had demonstrations back in the day of showing how AC electrocuted animals. This is just basic cruelty.
Yeah, elephants.
Yeah, I see. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to stop electrocuting elephants in my demonstrations. Yeah, I guess it was like AC is easy to boost the voltage, and then it was easier to kill an elephant with, or I don't know. Yeah, and then I think that Edison was trying to use it for capital punishment.
Well, that succeeded for a long time because they were electrocuting people. Your death by electrocution or unaliving by electrocution, as they like to say today.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll just leave that up to the sloppy electricians.
What do you mean leave it up to the sloppy?
Oh, to the ones to get to die by electrocution, the ones that don't follow OSHA.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get green mild while you're working. I heard a story about someone, I think it was at NABCEP, speaking of electricity and electrocution safety. Guy was working on a site, a commercial site, and he just needed to tighten a conductor or something, right? And the foreman is like, hey, put your PPE on. He was like, look, put your PPE on. The foreman goes to do something else and he hears a boom. So this guy suffered an arc flash where he was working because he just needed to tighten a little thing, but it arc flashed and melted half of him off. And I'm like, this is why people take it for granted until it happens. Mm-hmm. So safety is so important, so important, so important.
Yeah.
I want to know something about your project that you're working on, Sean. So you've got land and you are making a facility for training.
Yeah, and it's kind of being built up right now. And there's this place that's smack in the middle of the Bay Area, and we're going to do a solar training center there. We're going to have all kinds of cool stuff, and for energy storage, for solar, even pumped hydroelectric demonstration project. Ooh. And it's in a redwood forest. It's right next to Oakland in a rural area where you can have campfires.
Do you have a pond on?
Yeah, there's a couple of ponds. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That would be awesome.
Yep.
All right. So is this for mostly 208, 240, or are you going to do like the stepped up voltage with some commercial industrial stuff too?
We'll see where we go. We'll see where we end up. Just like with this podcast, I don't know where it's going to end.
I just wanted to hang out with you.
Uh-huh.
Everybody that know it, I was like, Sean, I need to be on. Put me on. Put me on. He's like, okay.
This is my way of hanging out. This is the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because we only get conferences to really do it unless
Huh.
we run across each other at some venue, which is extremely rare. I mean, you
Huh.
and I have come across each other twice in over 15 years in the field. So one at Sunrun, one in Detroit.
Yeah. And then at those conferences, it's pretty lots of people, kind of exhausting and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not the person I used to be at these conferences. I used to just go, go, go. But now,
But I also was listening to your podcast. I don't think you're releasing them anymore.
no, I'm not because I'm kind of scattered and all over the place. ADHD. It was kind of like you. I wanted to talk with people who of things I had interest in. And that tends to be literally everything in the universe. So one day I could be talking to a book author. The next day I could be talking to a financial advisor. Whatever came across my mind, I would say, huh, this is a good format for me to talk to an
Yeah.
expert.
So maybe you could tell people about your podcast. They're still up there. We'll put a link in the notes.
It's still up on Spotify, which is the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with Emmitt
Mm.
Muckles.
All right.
And here was a premise behind Billionaire Lifestyle because everyone thinks it's about money, and it is quite the opposite. We, as individuals, each individual, and as a collective, are billionaires. And you might be saying, Emmett, what are you talking about? Well, if you just think about the skin cells that are covering your body, there's over a billion of them. If you think about your internal organs, there's over a billion. If you think about your neurons, there's billions of them. So we own those as in this body that we're in. So we're already billionaires. And under the universe, the universal source creator always says, the birds don't worry about food and things that they need. The grass doesn't worry about the things it needs to grow and to thrive. I give everything. We just have to recognize that as billionaires is that we have everything we need. Everything else is pretty much kind of an extra. It's an experience.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Yep. And then we're also billionaires in Zimbabwe dollars, I think.
Why? Because they're worth like point zero
Oh,
zero
because
zero
they
one.
print faster than the United States Federal Reserve,
I didn't think that was possible. Yeah. Speaking of which, I was talking with my kids. I said to my kid, she asked me for something. Then this is the youngest one. She's 16. She said, "Hey, can I get this VR thing?" And it's like $500 or $700. I'm like, "Do you think I'm made of money?" She was like, "It's only like $700." I'm like, $700 used to be my rent. I'm like, "You
Yeah.
have no idea about money." She was like, "How much money do you have to make?" I was like, "Well, like 20 years ago, I only need to make like 10 to $15 an hour." I was like, and I was living the life. But now, because the dollar, they've printed so much money and it's gone down, I need to make three, four, five, six times that just to be middle class. And I lost her at that point. She was just like,
Yeah.
can I get it or not?
Yeah. You can give her a lesson on Austrian economics or fractional reserve banking.
Yeah.
Speaking of fractional. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. It's funny that you say Austrian because, that's where I go on vacation a lot.
Oh, you like to go to Austria. Okay.
I have to go to Austria.
Awesome.
My wife is Austrian.
Oh, cool. All right.
So I have to take her home so she can visit Mama and Papa and we can drink schnapps and have schnitzel.
Yeah, I think more like Austrian economics is kind of the opposite of things like fractional reserve banking and the Fed. So it would be like using gold for a currency.
Well, we used to
Where,
do that till 73, right?
yeah, yeah. And now we just have the printer. Yep.
So that's
So
why we have to just go to Bitcoin because there's only so many Bitcoin out there. So the US
I kind of like
Bitcoin.
that too. I kind of have this idea too of solar powered Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin's, you
Ooh,
can trace every Bitcoin, then
yeah.
you could trace that it was made with solar power. And then you could have people like us that go like, I only accept solar Bitcoin, something like that.
Now,
Huh.
hold on, I'm thinking about that. That might work.
hmm
But then I live in Indiana and they don't like solar here. A lot of the people here are scared of it.
How far are you from Indianapolis?
2 hours.
Okay. I could hook you up. In fact, I think tomorrow I'm talking to the people from Bela Solar on the podcast, a guy
Hmm.
named Mick, and they have a factory there, a PV factory
Stop it.
in Indianapolis. Yeah.
They make modules.
Yeah, they're just cranking up. Yeah.
Oh, please, please, please hook me up. I want to go there. I want to take my drone so I can do a flyover. And,
hmm
I get excited. I love solar.
Yeah, and I just did a class over there too. I've done a few of them. Like I think it's about every 3 years when they renew their NABCEP for all their electricians,
Yeah.
and it's called Jefferson Electric, and they're like super
I know
cool.
Jefferson Electric.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Well, no, 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 no. Yeah, they used to be a customer of Fronius because they were doing the IG Plus, and then they moved to the Simo.
Do you know Joel Walsman? Super cool
I
dude.
think
And he shows up at a lot of the solar conferences. And I was kind of amazed. He's got like a really awesome YouTube channel with like tons and tons of followers and stuff. And he's doing like electrician videos. And he's quite the entrepreneur. He owned this coffee shop where we would do the classes and they'd have weddings. And I think he just sold the coffee shop, which was kind of sad because I loved it.
you said Waltzman or Saltzman.
Oh, Walsman.
Walsman. The
hmm
hell? Yeah, I can't find him.
Anyway, we'll put that in the show notes. And he's got, Jefferson Electric and all these great YouTube videos.
Maybe I should just put it in YouTube.
And he's kind of fun to watch too.
And he's in Indiana.
Yeah, he's in Indianapolis. Yeah.
Huh.
I'll introduce you to all my Indiana connections.
That would be great because we need a coalition here.
hmm
Because, first of all, there's a lot of, I believe, ag that would be here, agricultural solar, but most of it is not livestock. It's soy and corn.
hmm
So when I'm traveling south from here, typically I am going to the southern states and I have to go through, I can either go through southern Illinois or I can go through southern Indiana. Southern Indiana is basically wind area. So there's miles and miles and miles of turbines that are down right before you get to Indianapolis, but not after. And it's pretty cool because you wouldn't expect it here. You're like, why is there so much wind here? But the farmers are leasing out that area.
Yeah, I also did a class for the Carpenters Union there. And it was called it's the United Brotherhood of Carpenters in Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. It was like IKO, I think.
Was it in Indianapolis?
I did 3 days in 3 different states. So it was Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. I don't remember exactly. It was probably, I think it was Indianapolis. It's been a while.
Wait a minute, what were you doing for the carpenters?
Doing solar training. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you think about like solar training, a lot of it is structural. It's not all electrical, although they do like to, have arguments with the electricians union about that, like who can put the piles in the ground. The piles could be considered part of the grounding system, but the carpenters are like their union does pile driving.
Yeah.
So there's like piles and racks and all that kind of stuff. It's like putting together an erector set. And if you think about it too, carpenters, who's building all the other power plants too? There's electricians, of course, but a lot of it is just regular construction and concrete and steel.
Construction. Have you ever done anything with millwrights?
The carpenters union includes millwrights too. I think it's a little bit different depending on like which union you're talking about and all that kind of stuff. Like there's all these different chapters. In fact, I did a bunch of stuff for the Carpenters Union in Chicago, and now it's called Mid-American, and they swore me in. So I am officially, on paper, a union carpenter.
It's like being in the Loyal Order of Water Buffalo, right?
Yep.
You remember what that is with the Flintstones?
Is that the Flintstones?
Yeah, that's the Flintstones.
Yep, exactly.
So when you come in with those, what's the approach that you use for training with non-electrical people? Is it mostly dealing with loads and wind and
I think that everybody should know the basics. Even the secretary at the solar office, especially the CEO that oftentimes doesn't have a clue about voltage and current and all that kind of stuff, which is why I think a lot of these companies go bankrupt. So just giving them the basics. So if you're not going to work with electricity, like you're not going to be doing anything with electricity, you should know what you're not working with. So oh, I should stay away from that. So they should know the basics and things like that. And they should know what voltage, current, power, energy, all that kind of stuff is. It's a good idea. Just like, the basic NABCEP associate stuff. You've heard of NABCEP, yeah?
Yeah, I think somewhere in my history.
Yeah, so Emmitt is on the board of NABCEP, a NABCEP board member.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I was invited.
Hmm.
a couple of years ago. Actually, I was approached and was like, "Hey, Emmett, would you like to be on the board of NABCEP?" I'm like, "What? You even have to ask?" I mean, it was really bizarre to me because around that time, I got elected to like two boards in the same, like in 6 months.
What are the other ones?
The other one is of a coalition for a co-op around the lake. So this area has very different rules of,
So it's sort of like a lake where you live.
yeah, it's kind of a resort, but not,
Hmm.
and kind of a living community with an HOA, but not an HOA. And there's some very particular things that you have to be astute with as far as board membership. Like, since it's on a lake and the lake is built with a dam that's above the city, so part of the board duties is making sure that that dam is safe.
Huh. I'm working on a lake or a pond that's got some cracked concrete on it. Maybe you give me some pointers or know where to point me.
Wait a minute, you have a board pond or
Well, it's like 110 feet across, 25 feet
wow.
deep, and 1985 it was built, and we need to fix some cracks.
Yeah, but you're losing a lot of water, right?
Well, yeah. Like right now it's empty because we're trying to repair it.
Oh, it's empty. Wait a minute, 125 feet across.
Yeah, it's 1 million gallons. Yep.
You could
Mhm.
just line that baby. That's a big liner, but
Yeah, it's kind of deep. And when it gets deep, it's a whole lot more pressure on the liner, and it sounds like it would
yeah.
crack. The bottom is clay, so it would start sinking down and pull the bottom off, I think.
Yeah, you might have to do something like they do with the you know how they lift driveways? You might have to fill it from the bottom. So in the Midwest here, we have a when you pour a driveway, you should pour a peat rock and a sand level, and then you start pouring your concrete or whatever you're going to do. What happens in the Midwest is the sand over time, because everything settles a little bit and it gets uneven, water will get underneath the concrete, but only the sand will come out because the peat rock and stuff stays in place. And because the fine granularity of the sand, it washes out underneath. And you'll see this after a heavy rain. If you go through a suburban neighborhood in the Midwest, you'll see like these little sand strips, or looks like somebody was cleaning sand off their driveway at the end of the driveway. And usually what that is, and what'll happen then is it exacerbates the whole problem. So as the sand washes out, it drops down more, and more sand washes out and it drops down more. So to repair that, what they do is they come in, drill holes, and refill it with sand, and I think air too. It expands out and brings the driveway back up.
Wow. So high pressure sand. That's all I need is a high pressure sand injector.
There.
So you're on a lake board, a NABCEP board, and what's the other board you're on?
That's it right now.
Okay. Hmm.
I couldn't do anymore.
So what's all the NABCEP secrets?
Show up, take the courses. You know what? This dawned on me at the last NABCEP conference. So there's a lot of people who are, and I've had people call me throughout the year. Hey, Emmett, I'm not up on my CEUs. What do I need to do? Well, if you go to the NABCEP site, they tell you all these places and courses that have these CEUs.
And that's where you find my classes. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that you could do is pay attention to LinkedIn and various stuff, because a lot of these webinars will offer CEUs. A lot of the trainings that manufacturers give will offer CEUs, and participate in those so that you can stay up to snuff. And then when you come to the NABCEP conference, you can just kind of top it off with the CEUs.
Yeah,
there.
but smart people get all of their CEUs from Sean White's heat spring courses that are fun and exciting and educational, with Bill Brooks on there too. Yep.
How many courses do you offer that allow CEUs?
Well, I have 34 classes on heat spring, and then I do in-person classes. Not all the ones on heat spring are registered, I don't think. In fact, sometimes the classes that do give CEUs, we stop giving the CEUs because we don't want to give it all away for free. We want people to take the classes, and so I don't want to have like 10 different hours of free CEUs, but I have like probably 10 different free classes on there or something like that. And then I have a lot of classes that I teach in person. So it would be listed on the NABCEP website. That's actually how I'd find out. But also, since I'm an IREC master trainer and stuff like that, I think,
Who met the president one time?
uh, yep, that awesome president there, he's got my book. But yeah, I think like talking to you right now, maybe I could give you some NABCEP CEUs. We just have to talk about solar though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have talked about solar
Yeah.
a little bit here.
There we go. Yeah.
So
I
I can
did
get
say
like,
volts, amps, watts, energy, all that kind of
I
stuff.
just give me 5 of them. Can I barter for 5 CEUs?
Yeah, we need to talk. Do you want to do like the record marathon podcast here?
So we could do like 100 CEUs. Wait a minute. Yeah, do 100 CEUs if somebody listens to this.
Mhm.
But we have to have some way to prove that they actually listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about giving it to you.
Oh,
But
that would be
anyway,
great.
like I register with NABCEP for the
Mhm.
unlimited amount of classes I can register.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so it's like I don't know if it's $1,000 a year. I'd have to go look. It's like I haven't paid attention over because I'm just too busy, and it might have changed price or year to year something like that. But something like that, I don't know. It's on the NABCEP website, however much I pay. And then I know before I was paying, if you read the resource guide, it would tell you somewhere that somebody that has an IREC certification, like a master trainer, or
Yeah.
teaches a class that's approved by like a contractors board for CEUs, then they'll accept that too. So I think unless they change something, that I still would qualify that way, even though I don't really need to because I registered with NABCEP. But I think I'm also like double qualified to do that.
I think you're more than double qualified, Sean. You know, you got to think about it.
But it doesn't mean I could give 2 hours when I talk for one. So
I have a question for you. When you're developing a course, let's say a 3-hour course, how much time do you spend developing that? Because I know it can be tedious.
oh yeah, yeah. A lot of times I like double task and stuff too. So like right now I'm working on solar building and fire codes. So it would be like PV, the IRC and the IFC mostly.
Hmm.
And I started to do the video and then I was like, if I'm doing all this stuff, I might as well just write a book. And so I'm writing the book. And I've pretty much finished the book and then I'm going over it and I'm recording it on video and then I'll find some things that I want to fine tune in the book when I'm doing that. And so just for this class, which I think is probably going to be about 3 hours, it's like 2 months of work. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, but it also, this one includes a book, includes stuff that hopefully I can use longer into the future. But just like with the NEC, they update the IFC and the IRC. That's the International Residential Code and the International Fire Code. Every 3 years, it gets updated. So
Yeah.
sometimes there's not much in the way of changes, and sometimes there's a lot in the way of changes. And hopefully it will stick around and won't change too much. I heard something the last time I was teaching a class with Bill Brooks that they're going to super change the NEC in 2029. So they're going to get rid of things like the way that they name things, like solar won't be 690 anymore. Stuff like
What?
that. They're just going to like totally redo the NEC.
So are they going to change the numbers or are they just going to give them titles?
It sounds like they're going to change the whole organization. And so I kind of imagine that they're not going to really change what you do any more than usual, but they're going to just completely change the organization. From what he said, maybe they'll change their mind and not do it.
That's a big overhaul.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's been on a trajectory. So I live in Indiana. Indiana is still on NEC 2008.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
And some local jurisdictions are on 2008. So you can have a state that is on 2020, but this little city is still on 2008, and that's fine.
I noticed that Jefferson Electric, when they were having me teach the class, is like, what do you want me to do? They're like, oh, 2023. We always go by it anyway, even though we don't have to.
Yeah,
So they don't have to do like rapid shutdown and all that kind of stuff.
but they understand it or understand its application.
But they do it.
So
I mean, they do it
yeah.
just, yeah. I think that also on 2008, unless something changed recently, New York City
No.
with a ton of amendments, though.
Why don't they
Yeah.
just move to like the latest one?
Yeah. I know. And then I think that's what Indiana, that's what they told me they're going to do, is they're not going to go from 2008 to 11 to 14 to 17 to 2020 to 2020. They'll just go straight to 2023.
Oh, that's going to upset some people. Yeah, that's just going to have some
You'll
people in a
save a lot
tizzy.
of money on buying books.
Yeah, because those books are like a car loan in like 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what NABCEP's going to do when they switched away from the 2017 NEC on the tests, because they have a nice PDF copy that they could use. But 2017 was the last year they had a PDF version of the NEC. So then I guess people just have to bring the paper version for sure, probably. That's what they're doing for the ESIP. Yeah.
That thing's heavy. You talking about the book, right?
Yeah, like the NEC code book.
So I'm going to ask you a question about this because it used to be we talked about NEC code. Whenever we were talking in solar, and I would say this is prior to 2017, NEC code, NEC code, NEC code. Suddenly, I started hearing NFPA 70, NFPA 70 versus NEC code. What's the difference in the references? I know that one is based off the other, but why did the industry switch jargon?
It didn't. It's exactly the same thing. It's somebody who's just trying
Yeah.
to be tricky, you know?
Ah,
Yeah. So it's, yeah, there's like NFPA 70 is exactly the NEC.
I know. And I asked my dad this question. He's an electrician. He was like, the NEC is from the NFPA 70. I was like,
Yeah.
huh?
NFPA has all these different things, like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 of them or something. And like NFPA 855 is the standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems, which I think is too long of a title. So I just call it the ESS standard or something like that usually. But there's just all these different, there's 70E for safety in the
Yeah.
workplace. There's a whole bunch of these NFPA codes and standards. And the most widely used code, I think, in the world is the NEC, which nobody in the
Really?
industry really calls it NFPA 70 unless
Right.
they're trying to be fancy or writing it on a NABCEP test or something. Like that would probably be a good test question, is like, which one is the NEC? And then they'll go like NFPA 70 would be the right answer or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm just going off of why I started hearing the difference where we used to say, hey, NEC 2017, NEC 2020. And all of a sudden I started hearing people, maybe it was in certain circles, just saying NFPA 70, NFPA 70.
Yeah,
And I
we
was
call those circles nerds.
like, I identify as a nerd. I have, you know, I do, but not to that not a code nerd though.
Yeah, there's like cool nerds like us, and then there's just like nerd nerds. And nothing wrong with nerds. There are like some good people out there.
Nerds rule the world. Didn't you know that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
was telling a cousin actually who is this like super jock dude. And I was like, my friend, do you understand that nerds rule the world now? Think about it. Nerds rule the world. Those people that you were picking on in high school, they run the world and they will put you away. He was like, yeah, I could see that now. I was like, yeah, everything's
Yeah.
technology.
So I guess like Elon, he's kind of a nerd, a very
Oh,
controversial one.
he- he's he's special. Here's what I would say. I just think that we all have lanes that we reside in. And what I mean that is by life. We have things that are our specialty. I think he got outside of his lane.
Oh, like trying to run the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was behind a Tesla yesterday, and it had a big old sticker right next to the license plate. I took a picture of it, and it had Elon with a big old red slash and a circle through it and all that.
Yeah. There's a huge amount of people who are like chain putting Audi emblems on their car or Toyota.
Oh, I saw that too. Yeah, like all that. And then I know a guy who lives in San Francisco who's one of my fabulous friends, and he has a picture of Elon dressed in drag on the back of his Tesla that
Yeah.
says the First Lady. That was kind of funny.
You know, I'll give you something that I noticed where I live. I live in a small town that's about 30,000 people, maybe 32,000 now because people are moving
That's
here.
just about where I'm living. That many people, maybe a little less, but
Yeah, I realize, and I live on a busy street for this small town. There are a great number of Teslas in this town in the Midwest per capita. I think there may be more per capita in this town of Valparaiso than there are in San Francisco because it's amazing. But here's the rub. Very few people have solar, and this is what they do to charge them up. They take them down to Kohl's and Target and plug their car up to have their spouse come with their gasoline engine and pick them up while their car charges, and then they go to
for like a free charge or something like that.
Yeah, then they go pick their, or it's really cheap, or
Well,
they
it figures they call the store Kohl's, right? Coal Power.
and that's where they have them. They have them at Kohl's. I didn't see one at Target. And there was this one site that was downtown that had like 6 chargers. And I don't think they were ChargePoint. They were something else.
Well, I guess Indiana's got some progressive places like Notre Dame. Pete Buttigieg, was mayor there. They called him Mayor
Yeah.
Pete, I guess.
Yeah.
What's the name of that town where Notre Dame is?
I don't know. I'm not from here.
South Bend.
Remember that?
I think maybe South Bend.
No, South Bend is
I think there's South Bends all over the place.
South
That-
Bend is that
maybe-
Purdue? See, I'm a Michigan person.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm a Michigan expat.
We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSean, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. Okay, so what's the big topics on the NABCEP board that you can't talk about? Do you guys have like secret meetings? Do you guys have to cut your hand and shake? Like exchange bodily fluids or anything, blood?
Yeah, there's a cauldron involved too.
Do you wear weird hats or anything like that? Like
No, we don't wear the weird hats. We kind of replicate the cone heads so that we can get our synergies together in one room. No, I think NABCEP, you're going to see more of a presence of NABCEP at conferences and
Great.
things of that nature.
Yeah, I love always hanging out with the NABCEP people. Did you see like Sue Pratt? She's been there the longest. She just retired at the NABCEP conference and got a standing ovation.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Well, I was there the second time because they gave a dinner for Sue as well. But
yeah.
I really love NABCEP, and I'm going to tell you expressly why. And I actually loved all the shows. I just love going and seeing the equipment and seeing the people and asking questions and things of that nature. But I realized recently some of the other shows are becoming so salesy that you can't get the technical information you need about products, or you can't contact the people in the know technically directly like you used to. They used to be at the booths. They used to be hanging out. Now you only get those a lot of times at things like NABCEP.
Yep.
Because I have very technical questions. Were you there last year when I was on my CT rant?
Oh, you were at the conference or something? So
I was at every conference just assaulting people about CT problems.
well, see, like you gave a talk or something. Is that what you mean?
No, I was just trying to find out why are people having so many problems installing CTs the correct way. And I was wondering what the manufacturers were doing
So
about
a
it.
CT is a little loop that you put around a wire, current transformer.
Yes, current transformer. Because in batteries or some of these battery installations, particularly in residential, the batteries weren't discharging or they weren't operating properly. Well, there's a relationship between the CT, where it's placed, how it's placed, and when the battery charges and discharges. If that CT placement is off, your battery doesn't function so well. And I had a lot of these that were not functioning because people were willy-nilly putting in CTs. Some of the information from the installers wasn't actually that clear. Which direction the CT is and how to know which direction the CT is pointing. For one manufacturer is pointing toward the load, another manufacturer is pointing toward the grid, and understanding turn ratios of these CTs, and you can't just get anyone and put it on them without doing some stuff. So I was on a mission to gather as much intelligence about each manufacturer that was out there and each battery, and I was taking no prisoners, none. And it worked out. I solved my problems.
Cool.
To an extent.
Cool. But yeah, whenever I'm at the NABCEP conference, I do the associate class, and that means I don't get to see any of the other presentations until the last day, because I'm teaching the whole time until the last day at noon. And,
But you can watch the video.
Oh, there's like videos of all the stuff that I missed?
Yeah, they typically, in years past, they've always recorded the sessions and then they were available probably like a month or two after.
Okay, cool.
because they're edited down and you could get them.
Mm-hmm.
I got to check on that
Yeah.
because I remember it used to be so you could watch the sessions afterwards because they'd have cameras and mics set up for the entire room.
So NABCEP's pretty much at all the main conferences. I mean, even the regional RE pluses, they've
Yeah.
always got a booth.
Yeah.
You
They
know?
typically have a booth there. Yes.
Yeah, like Inner Solar, all those are any kind of RE plus.
Are you coming to the Midwest Solar Expo in Chicago?
You should invite me. No, I don't have any plans. Yep.
Well, so the Midwest Solar Expo used to be an independent show, but I
Hmm.
think it recently got acquired by Intersolar.
Oh yeah, diversified. They bought Inner Solar from the Germans, Inner Solar US. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's underneath that auspice. And I believe there is another that is going to be in November under Intersolar as
Oh
well.
yeah, in
So,
Texas or something. Yeah.
yeah, so I know of at least the three. So we were at Intersolar, which was in California. And then Intersolar is, well, now it's under, well, the Midwest
Yeah,
Solar
there's
Show.
so many conferences it seems like right now that it might make it so less people go to all of them.
I think it'll make less people go to
But I like small
the
conferences.
larger.
Yeah.
I do too,
Yeah.
because you can get to see what's really happening in the local jurisdiction, especially as a trainer. It's good to talk because I always tell people America's like 9 to 11 different states of being, and they all have their own unique flavor, problems, and things of that nature. Because maybe some things that are happening in the Southwest, you're not getting in the Southeast. Things that are happening in the Midwest, you're not getting in the Northeast.
States of being. Okay, cool. So
Yeah,
you have to make a map
there is a map.
of the states of being.
Yes, that's where I found it.
We got to put 8 or 9 stars on the flag now.
It's the 11 states of America.
Oh,
11 states of America. Hold on, I'm looking it up now. 11 nation. Oh, here it is. The 11 nations of the United States and their cultures. It was
hmm.
an article that came out years ago, but that's the name of it. And it explains how United States is not just one monolithic thing, that we have 11 nations where they have their own identity and culture and a way of communication and things that are just local to this regional area. It's actually a pretty cool map because because okay, let me explain it to you this way. If you think about far the California coast, Oregon and Washington state, this is called the left coast.
Yeah, that's me.
Then
Yeah.
inland of that, between if you start from California and those three states, inland,
Yeah, and probably even just not coastal California. It's like you go out other side of Sacramento and it's pretty lots of rednecks and.
no, they call that the far west.
Okay. All
And
right.
from there, once you get to about the middle side of Oklahoma and you go up the states from Texas on up, that's called the Midlands for like a narrow band. And then where I'm at is called Yankeedom.
Yankee.
And there's like Greater Appalachia, El Norte, Tidewater, New Netherlands, New
That must be in
France.
New England. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a little bitty area that they have. There's a map. Which of the 11, look up the 11 nations of
Okay.
America.
All right. We'll put a link.
I shall.
We'll put it in the notes, the show notes. But yeah, your Indiana guy, Pete Buttigieg, he's from North Bend, Indiana. That's where he was mayor. That's where he was born. And he's only 43.
That's pretty young.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. And I've got solarenergyforconsumers.com. And so you're representing the consumers. I've been talking a lot about Senator Donate's speech at the NABCEP conference. And so he's a senator that goes after the solar bros because the
Yeah.
solar bros knocked on his parents' door and ripped them off with some kind of solar scam and made them sign something. And so he's on a mission to stop that. And I think it's very important because it's giving our industry a bad reputation. In fact, NorCal Solar, which is an organization that I am now running that's 51 years old this year, NorCal Solar's new mission is to, make solar have a good reputation, to get rid of all of the bad vibes that are going on from people that are scammers out
Yeah.
there, like to chase out the scammers. So it sounds like, just from looking at your website for a minute, solar energy for consumers, you're like a consumer advocate that can
I
help
am.
people sift out and find the good and the bad. And like, how does that business work?
So what I did over the years, I worked in troubleshooting,
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in consulting, and I've worked in remote diagnosis. So when you work in remote diagnosis, you see shoddy work, you see what people aren't getting. And there was a theme that kept reoccurring when you're talking to end customers, and they would say, well, the salesman told me. And then when I would hear that term, I would shudder a little bit because I know everything is done via contracts. It doesn't matter what they tell you, it's a matter what they write and what you sign, which led me to believe that most customers just don't understand the solar process. They don't understand it from
Yeah.
A to B.
Yeah, and then also we have a culture now, like, where everything you do on the internet is got like 100 pages of fine print, and you just go like, you got to click it. You're not going to read it. You know, when I
Yeah.
buy a phone and or get something, I'm not going to read everything in there. So we have a culture of not reading the fine print because we can't.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's they don't even understand the process. They're just believing what they're told. And like you said, the fine print versus if someone can educate you on what to expect and things that you should do before you even thinking about going solar. So solar energy for consumers, one of the things that I put in a course, and what I did is the website is just for awareness, but I built a course on Teachable so that it could educate people on how to make your home more energy efficient, the basic things that you need to look at for energy efficiency, understanding how to read your utility bill, because most people don't even read their utility bill. I remember back with my parents, they would get the bill, they would gripe about how much it was, and then they would pay it. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't look at the details and say, hey, maybe we should turn some stuff off because last month it wasn't as, or what's the difference between last month and this month? Oh, it wasn't that cold, so our furnace wasn't going. People don't understand these basic things about energy usage and your home being efficient. And then you want to add somebody who's selling solar, they just believe whatever is told to them. They don't know how it works, they don't know what components are there.
A lot of them are just told like, this is a great job, you can save the planet. You know, they're kind of scammed a lot of ways too. The door-to-door salespeople, somebody just goes up to them and they're like, hey, you want to make $500,000 a year and save the
Yep.
planet? This is what you got to do. And they think they're doing it, and they're actually end up scamming people a lot of times.
Yeah, and what they do is they get young people and don't educate them properly. They just want them to make the sale, and they throw a lot of dollars at them.
Mm-hmm.
For someone coming out of high school, if you can make $500 to $1,000 a sale, you're going to do whatever you have to make that sale. Having said that, that's when the poor practices, the love of money is the root of most in all evil. So I made a course where people, if you're thinking about going solar, this course is for you. And it is not that expensive. There's a subscription model. There's a one-time payment where you have it for the rest of your life if you need to. And I will always be updating it as things go forward. But it will save you so much money and headaches. Because if you get a poor installation or an installation that doesn't fit your needs, or you do something like, hey, I got solar, now I'm going to buy a EV Humvee and plug it into my
Mm-hmm.
house. And I don't understand why I have a bill now. They said I wouldn't have a bill. It's because you didn't understand the process. And if you understand the process, if you understood the application, you can make better decisions when you are thinking about going solar, or if one of your family members is thinking about going solar, you can educate them and keep them from making costly mistakes. Because typically you're in a PPA contract, and that's power purchase agreement or lease for 10 to 25 years.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, it's like I had this idea just about a week ago, and I was talking to Brian Hayden at Heat Spring. It's like, you know what? We ought to do a course where it's a consumer solar certification. You know, it sounds like that's what you've already done. And
That's what
now
I've
I'm
done.
thinking you're on the NABCEP board. Is that something NABCEP could do? Like maybe they
No.
wouldn't call it a certification, it would just be a certificate or an associate.
Yeah, I asked.
because this could
I
save the
asked.
industry, you know?
This
Like,
could save the industry, but I think it has to be done. Maybe I'll talk with Brittany. Maybe she
yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. And if you want, I could get involved any way you want or whatever. Yeah.
That's the issue, though. Most of our training is done toward the industry of installers and people in application, but none is thinking about the end consumer. It's just like making a car, but not having people to require a driver's license and take tests.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Uh-huh.
that's what it's like.
Well, that's like I have a sailboat with Bill Brooks, and we don't have any sailing license. We just sail.
You just, yeah, but that's pretty much open. You just,
Yeah, that's
you,
just the
you
way it
can
is.
you can sail off into the sunset and you'll never be seen again. And
The law of the
everybody's like,
sea. Like, do you think a pirate has a license? Arr.
but it's not causing such strife in an industry like miseducation is of the consumer. There are people who are going on to news channels, which is giving solar a black eye because people are having a really bad experience. And most of their experience comes from they just didn't know. They were ignorant of the process and didn't know what to expect and believed somebody when they told them something that was not exactly true. So if the more educated you are, and I'll give you a for instance, there's a young lady that I worked with and she works in solar and I explained solar to her and how it works. And she said a solar sales guy came to her house and she says, so this is going to get rid of my bill, my electric bill. He's like, yeah. She's like, well, I've talked to Emmitt, so I know that's not true. She was like, what equipment am I going to have? And he says, well, it depends. She was like, what kind of inverter am I going to have? She said, when she said, what kind of inverter is she going to have? He did a double take. It was like, oh, I'm not messing with the typical. And he was like, I'm going to have to get back to you.
You probably didn't know.
But that's the kind of thing. If you have as much or more information than somebody trying to sell something to you, they can't sell to you.
Okay, goes in tight. So do you offer like a paid service or something like that where you can consult with the customer? Like if somebody wants to get solar and they're like, here's, is there a price?
So one of the things that I plan on offering is a group. I've waited till April to launch this course because I had to clear up some things legally before. And I'm not saying that it's just making sure contracts don't overlap each other. But one thing that I really am looking forward to having is weekly or bi-weekly just live sessions where Q&A.
Oh, that's cool.
Where somebody can come in, hey, my grandma's getting solar. I want to know about, and they can explain. Kind of like
Maybe it could be a podcast or something too. Yeah.
a live podcast.
Yeah.
Would you be on it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And he'd be like, I got Sean White here. I mean, because
and then we'll just like one thing I thought that I've been doing lately, sorry to change the subject, we'll go back to it, is that when people cold call me and they're like, you could just tell they're full of it, I totally troll them. Like instead of getting pissed off, I like do something and get them pissed off, So it would be fun to be on a podcast and start calling these shady companies and going like, hello, I'm 90 years old and I need solar or whatever it is,
I think this would be a thing. We could be the anti-solar bros.
Yeah, we could get these people on there, or the real bros, because we're real bros, not like those fake bros. And then we'll expose those people. Like there's these YouTube guys that are going out there and they're like super hackers and they're like hacking the webcams and the call centers in India where they're scamming people.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
So that would be totally fun to go like expose these people. For me, I get a lot of calls that there are people selling leads. And I always go like, are your people NABCEP certified? And they always go, yes. And they're always lying. So that's just a great way to screen people out and ask if they're NABCEP certified. And that would go for a consumer too, like asking the salesperson, are you NABCEP certified? If they say yes, that means they're lying. If they say no, at least they're honest. And, one in a million times, maybe they really will be. And then that would be the person to buy from. But the people that are honest, they're probably busy doing the right thing. Yeah.
It's money. It is because in Australia, a 7.6 or 3.8 PV system costs you less than like 15 grand, between 8 and 15 grand.
I think you could even get them for like $1 a watt.
And here, there are some systems that
Triple.
cost
Quadruple.
Oh,
yeah.
more than that. They're like 40 to 100 grand for a PV system. I don't know what kind of fees are in, even if you got unless you got like 40 kilowatt hours of battery, three-phase inverters with transformer for your house. I can see it costing that, but let's see here. What's the most that you can put on a residential with battery and PV? So you're not going to go pretty much over 10, 12 kW.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of hard to say with a battery because you could have $100,000 battery if you wanted to back up your house for a week.
Yeah.
You know.
But even still, just on the basic PV system, and I've seen people with basic PV systems and they're costing 40 grand. And it's not a large house. These houses in the Midwest, they're like 1,400 square feet, maybe 2,000 square feet, but they don't have that much roof space that they can.
Yeah, you know what they should have too is like a chart that a consumer can look at, and it says like, okay, you're in this area. This would be the range of your PV system. This would be the range of your battery or something, you know.
I actually did a calculator. I built a calculator.
I see that. I'm looking at your website right now. So solar calculator, privacy policy.
Oh, I had some problems with the website. It crashed on me.
But
So I did not that calculator. Thank you for pointing that out because now I got to redo it. I built a calculator for it. And what I did was I put in the stipulation so you can put in your bills, your kilowatt hour usage for month to month, right? But then at the end, you say where you are in the United States in one of these 4 regions so you can get your basic kilowatt hours available for you. But then on top of that, when it gave you your calculated output, it gave you if you wanted 100% offset, 80% offset, 70% offset, down to 40% offset. So that you could know, even if you're getting solar, you could just go to the calculator, which I have to reprogram now because my website crashed, and put it in there. So you could say, hey, I live in Illinois. This person said I'm getting an 8 kilowatt system and it should offset all my energy costs for the year. And you could find out if that's true.
And another thing too is you could look at price per watt. Like, so if you go to SIA, residential price per watt average in the US, it's a little bit more than $3 a watt, you know, and that's without batteries and stuff like that. And in a place where I live, it's going to be more because labor is a lot more expensive and permitting, and it just costs more to live here and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be more. In some places, it'll be $2 a watt is what people are sometimes selling a residential solar system for. And then you can add on something for batteries, but you can kind of get an idea. And if something's $10 a watt, what do you think they should do?
Isn't that what it used to be when it first started?
Yeah, they should go back to 2008 and then buy it. When the PV modules themselves were just like $5 a watt.
Yeah. I mean, by now, I've been in this quite a few years. Maybe you remember this. What was the cost per watt in 2010?
Yeah, I don't know. I would just say, like, if I had to just take a guess, maybe $7, something like that.
So it's down to like $2, which is good. But we've had other innovations come up, which is driving the cost higher.
But yeah, and then a lot of people too now, they're all freaked out about tariffs. And there's like, you know, different reasons that are good to be freaked out about it. But then that can mean made in America. And then even if the worst tariff, if it triples the price of PV, I was reading an article in PV Magazine the other day, and they were complaining that the price of solar was going to go up for modules up to 12 cents a watt. And it's like, well, that's even if it was triple that, it's not going to be like a huge, giant difference in the price of your system.
You know what I'm a fan of?
You're a fan of disco.
I actually am. You'll have no idea how much of a fan. You pulled that out, but you were spot on. Chic was my favorite during the disco era.
What was that?
The group Chic.
Chic. Okay, I have to get into that. Yeah.
They made the song Good Times. Anyway, you just put me on a tangent. But here's what the other thing I'm a fan of is solar generators. You've seen these little boxes that have an inverter and battery, and they have plugs built into them, and you can put solar into it.
Yeah, I know somebody that kind of lives off of one of those. Yeah.
Oh, I run my whole studio off when I have an Anchor sitting here right beside me. I have an EcoFlow in my office upstairs. I use them as UPS.
UPS. Yep.
I use them as UPSs for the most part.
Uninterruptible power supply.
Yes, because we have these power outages in the spring and in the fall. I don't even know that anything is happening because I hear a click and then Nothing. My computer's still running, but the neighborhood is out.
Hmm.
So I have like a couple of these plus, and you had them on your show a little while ago. I have an EG4 battery
Oh, cool. Yeah.
and an EG4 3000-watt inverter that I used to run my garage. But the problem is I didn't have a heated battery, so I have to bring it in the winter because it gets like -6 or -20
Okay.
here.
Hmm.
So what I do is I bring it down to the basement and I run everything off of it for a time and then just connect it up to some kind of solar source. Or I can actually just plug it into the wall and charge the battery up. It's a lot of energy, but
How many kilowatt hours?
5.1.
5.1. Wow. Okay. And it's a little portable one?
No, 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 no. The 5.1 kilowatt is on a hand truck
Uh-huh.
that I use to take out to the garage, and it weighs about 100 and something pounds. That's just the battery. It's a server rack battery, and I have the 3 kilowatt inverter to run that to use it to run my garage. But I bring it in the winter in my basement, which gets no lower than like 58 degrees. So my batteries won't freeze because they're lithium iron phosphate. But my anchor is like 2.8 kilowatt.
Hmm. Cool. 2.8 kilowatt hours. Okay. Because you know what I just got? I got a used 2011 Nissan Leaf for $3,200. And it's got a 30-mile range. And most people don't drive that far anyway. Like 90% of my trips, no problem. You know, probably even more than 90% of my trips, no problem. But I thought like it would be kind of cool if there was like a little kilowatt hour that I could put in the trunk just so like while I'm testing out the limits of the range, like if I went down to zero and all of a sudden it wouldn't start, I could go plug it in and charge it up.
What's the voltage on your Leaf?
I mean, it's just, I don't know what the voltage of the big battery is,
You should find out.
but it's like, I mean, I know a lot of cars are somewhere around 400 volts. I don't know why it would be that much different, but it is like the first really mass produced electric vehicle. But I know that also it uses CHAdeMO for charging. I had some
Yeah.
people on my podcast from Fermata Energy, and I went to the Wallbox headquarters in Barcelona, and they're using Nissan Leafs to power stuff because they are always have been bidirectional. So I need to just get the right inverter charger. Yeah.
I'd be interested to know what the output of their battery is because my battery on the one that I'm the rack mount is 51 volt, 51.8, 52 volts.
Okay.
It charges around it. It's a 48-volt battery. So you'd have to have several of them. And these babies weigh a couple, like 100 pounds each. So like that would be, ooh, you need like 4 or 5 of them.
Okay. 360 volts. I just looked it up.
360. So
360 volts, 24 kilowatt hours.
yeah, you need something kind of big.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, pretty close to that 400. And
Most of the portable items are 48 volt.
yeah. And so I figured that that car, as soon as I figure out how to plug it into the house, it is cheaper than any kind of equivalent, battery that I could get, that I could go buy. Like it was brand new, it was 24 kilowatt hours. So right now it's probably half of that, maybe something like that. And so that's like equivalent of, say, like just like your average battery you put on your wall or a power wall or something like that. And it comes with wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could drive it down to the edge of your property and get
Yeah.
the mail.
Yeah.
Unplug your house.
And then also I don't have to worry about getting vandalized by the Elon protesters.
Hey, so is that battery in that car replaceable?
Yes, it is, but it would cost more than I paid for it. Like I think it's like $4,000 or something like that. And I talked to this one guy that I'm going to have on the podcast soon. And he's a guy I've been working with lately, a local guy, took my class in 2009. And he was actually taken home from the hospital in an electric vehicle 37 years ago, homemade electric vehicle. So his parents are super EV nerds, and he's the biggest EV nerd. In fact, that's his email address. And so Dean was telling me about how to fix the battery and take the cells out and all that kind of stuff. And so it sounded very labor intensive to go in there to the Nissan Leaf and take all the cells out.
What kind of cells are they using in there? Do you know? Are they conical cells or are they the flat? I can't think of the name of them. Because there's the flat cells, there's the 18650 cells, and then I think there's a 36, which is based on the diameter of the cell itself, but one is more dense than the other.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong.
So I just did the search and I am looking at, it's not saying, it's telling me like the chemistry, lithium manganese oxide.
Ah,
That's weird, with a little nickel. So NMC, technically it's a laminate type lithium ion cell. Like, let me ask another question here.
you got to go to Chat GPT. They'll tell you. How do you
Yeah.
like AI?
Yep, I'm using it right now. Yep, you caught me.
Which one are you? Which one are you using? Are you using Chat
Pouch.
GPT?
It's using a pouch type. Yeah, I'm using the paid version of GPT.
Have you ever tried Perplexity?
No, I haven't. I've heard something about it though.
So Perplexity, and I think Chat GPT just updated because I put something in and I was surprised at what came back versus like 3 months ago. Perplexity uses the internet in conjunction with the AI. So it'll go search for links and correlate things for you and put them together.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a pouch battery, and this is what's a little bit weird. So most cars these days are NMC, lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide, or LFP, which is what we use for our stationary systems these days. And so LFP, lithium iron phosphate. And it also says, though, that it uses lithium manganese oxide and nickel manganese cobalt oxide. So it's some kind of combination with lithium manganese oxide. So that sounds a little bit interesting. And I know about also these early Nissan Leafs, since they were like the first out there, their thermal management system wasn't as good as they are today. So that's one reason why my battery is degraded so much, and it has about a 30-mile range.
So what was the range on it when it was new? 160?
It's only 24 kilowatt hours. I think it was like short of 100 miles.
So it's good for jumping around town.
Yeah, yeah.
What about in cold weather though?
Probably going to be less. One of the things that I've noticed is it's not very accurate on the ranges. And sometimes when I drive to the gym in the morning, my range is longer when I get there than when I left. And maybe that's because the battery warmed up a little bit.
Yeah. That would be great for me because I really, outside of going to sites or going to a training or going to the airport to go to a conference, I'm pretty much local. And I live in a town where 8 minutes driving, you're through the entire town.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
top to bottom or side to side.
It's fun. And they're all over the place. Like you just go to, I got off Craigslist. I got a bunch to choose from.
Really? But I just use my e-bike here.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's good, especially in the winter.
I bought, yeah, right. Actually, people here ride their bikes in the winter. You know why they ride their bikes
You
in the
put
winter?
spikes on the tires?
No, they get the tires like the sand tires for the beach with the big fat tires and ride those. But they have to because they usually had a DUI and they got their license taken.
Oh, you're
So
in one.
like-
I lived in a town where everybody had a DUI before. Yeah.
But everybody just drove anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a border town with Canada, and nobody was allowed to go to Canada.
Wait a minute. What town was this?
Haines, Alaska.
Okay.
Like if you go sit in the bar and you go like, who's been to Canada lately? And you're like, I can't go. Everybody was just like, I can't go. I can't go.
Why were you in Alaska?
It was awesome. I was there on vacation and somebody asked me if I wanted a job being a kayak guide. And I was like, you're going to pay me to kayak? Are you crazy? Okay. You know, and so I was working for Native Americans as a kayak guide. And then I stayed there for 2 summers and a winter. And I ended up being like a DJ on an NPR station and also a bartender. And I quit drinking shortly after that because I hit my limit, you know. Some people hit their limit like on a daily basis. I just like hit it on a lifetime basis.
Yeah. What was the winters like? No one knows. I mean, we're Americans, but
I was southern Alaska. It was probably like Canada a lot of times. I was on the coast too. So if I went inland, it would have been a lot colder. But it would rain in the winter sometimes.
Really?
It was near Juneau. So it's just like the water keeps you stable throughout the year to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like where the coldest I saw it get was, I think, about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And if I went inland 30 miles, I probably would have hit minus 30.
I was about to say, because I hit like minus 20 here in Indiana, maybe 3, 4 times a year.
Yeah, I'm sure that it gets a lot colder there in Indiana than it does coastal Alaska
That's crazy.
because it's on the coast. And if you look
Yeah.
at it's got a huge latitude range too, Alaska. It's like you can go up to where there's polar bears and you can go to the furthest north temperate rainforest in the world, which is where I lived.
That's bizarre. I mean, I wouldn't expect that. But this is one of the things about the world, and this is why people should travel, because you think you know until you experience it. There's nothing like the experience. People can say, yeah, don't go to Africa because there's just lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And then you get there and you find like they have these cities that are just magnificent and modern. Or
Yeah.
when you go to Europe and you think it's all medieval castles and Dracula.
It's
And
not.
then you find
Yeah.
out that it's not, or it is. There are some places that is just like that, where it's turn of the century, like go back 100 years, and they live like that. But that's what's cool about the world, is traveling and seeing what's actually here, because this is a big place.
Yeah, I remember like the highways in South Africa seemed like nicer than most of the highways that I drive on.
I bet,
You know, just like
especially after you went to Detroit, right?
yeah. Yeah, like where did I park that car? Oh, it's down there in that pothole.
Oh, I can tell you stories. I hit a pothole one time that gave me a flat, and I could not drive my car. I couldn't even get the wheel off. I had to get it towed because the pothole was probably 12 inches deep. So it was just jagged, and you couldn't see it because it was at night. I hit the pothole, and my car literally bounced up 3 feet. It hit the pothole, bounced up,
Okay.
and then swerved, and my wheel just goes bloop, bye bye.
It took off, left your car.
Yeah, it rolled. It was like bye.
What about the other wheel behind it? The back wheel? Did that?
I missed it because it kind of swerved, because I bounced and I did a kind of a jump swerve.
Oh, like a skateboarder, like an ollie.
Yeah, because you hit, like when you hit something like that, you have a tendency to jar your wheel. Jar my wheel, and the back of the car just kind of slid around, and my wheel said, I'm gonna keep on going.
And so you just like did that, what they do in the movies, and ride on two wheels?
No, I wish. I wish. I wish. The same thing happened to me in Indiana too. When I first moved here, I hit a pothole on 80/90, which turns into 94, which goes east and west. And I didn't see it, and it was coming around the corner. It took out 4 other cars as I sat there and waited for the tow truck to come, because it was on an off ramp, and you won't see it, but most people tend to lean into an off ramp, like toward the inside, which is what I did. I hit the hole, and boom, I pull over. And then like 4 minutes later, boom, someone else hits it. They pull over.
I think the tow truck company, they put a stick of dynamite there
I believe you're right.
and increase their business. It's like business been slow lately. Let's make us a nice pothole.
They said, let's make a nice pothole at about 6:30 p.m. just as the sun's going down, so no one will see it.
Yeah.
And boom, it happens. Yeah. So, Sean, I have to wrap up some things. So we are fractional trainers. Remember that.
Yeah, and we've got a good rapport going too. So let's do this again.
Yes. So remember, you and I, that's the new term for us. We're fractional trainers. We do it fractionally, and we have to educate the end consumer. If you take nothing else away from that, know that Sean and I are fractional people.
Can my fraction be greater than 1, like 4/3 or something?
4/3? So you're top heavy is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, a million once.
Four-thirds.
Is there
Why not
million
5/3? If
halves?
you're going to go there, go
Yeah.
higher.
How about a million halves? How about, since you're the Billionaire podcast, I'll say 2 billion halves.
Wait a minute. You said a million halves.
Halves? Well, I tried to say a million once, but that didn't really make sense.
A mi-
So I'll say
You're showing
2 billion halves. That's a billion.
2 billion halves is a billion. Yes,
Yeah.
true. That works.
Okay, good.
So that's your fractional portion. So you need to get a shirt that says 2 billion halves. I'm a fractional trainer.
Hey, and just to finish it off, you're on the NABCEP board. So I
I'm on
think
the
somebody
NABCEP.
told me already. What's the theme of next year's conference over there in Milwaukee?
I don't know. You have to ask Jada.
I thought that somebody came up with something.
Oh, but it's going to be in Milwaukee, so you know what it's going to be. It's in Cheesehead Land.
Oh,
It
okay.
has to be related to cheese.
I was thinking even like Fonzie or Happy Days or Laverne and
Yes.
Shirley, you know?
Actually, downtown Milwaukee, there's a bronze statue of the Fonz, which is life size.
Awesome.
Henry Winkler's kind of short, so
You know, Henry Winkler, the Fonz, I've seen him. He's like, I mean, out there posting on social media and stuff like that. I think he's the kind of guy that would love solar and maybe even do it for free. You guys should get him to be the speaker, Mr. Board Member.
okay, I'm gonna ask
That would
for.
be cool, man. Hey,
Hey,
hey.
we both went there at the same time. Hey. So get the Fonz. I have to talk to Jada see if she can get the Fonz on.
Yeah, if anybody could do it, Jada from NABCEP could get the Fonz or you
Yep,
because you're cool.
yep. 2 billion once.
Got it.
We advocate for the end consumer with solar energy for consumers. That's what the hat says.
Yep, we'll
Solar
put
energy
all
for
that on
consumers.
the notes and people could look it up. Solarenergyforconsumers.com.
And where are you going to be next? What conference are you going to be next, or what outing are you going to be?
Oh man, you know, it seems like right now the in-person classes have slowed down, and I'm pretty sure that it's because some of these people that are doing the workforce development stuff, they got
Yeah,
the message on their computer screen when they logged in that says the funding has been suspended, you know,
yeah.
because of political stuff, things like that. But the certification prep is going strong and all that kind of stuff. And I am going to be next month, which is, well, we have a big backlog, so I might already have been there. Intersolar
Who
in
is we?
Germany. Oh, just all my podcast release dates are all booked up, me and my staff and my team and all that kind of stuff.
I feel fortunate.
Well, I mean, it's like even this podcast, it'll be released probably like 2 months from now or something like that,
Yeah.
just because we have a backlog, but we're going to start double posting maybe twice a week just to get caught up. And then I'm going to be like Intersolar in Germany. I haven't been to that one since COVID, so that'll be a lot of fun. And then in June, it's going to be SNEC in Shanghai. We're going to be in SNEC in
Snack.
Shanghai. Yep. That's
What
the
is
biggest
snack?
solar conference in the world, like 500,000 people.
Oh, I can only
So
imagine.
that's like a million halves of a person. and and so my friend Madam Me, she started this little solar conference something 20 years ago or something like that.
That's
And
huge.
it turned into be the biggest one in the world. So she's like a
Wow.
business genius. And she invited my mom to come. We were having dinner the other
Awesome.
night. And it's a huge conference. If you ever can go there and check it out, that'll be a lot of fun.
I
I've
want to be
got
like you when I grow up.
some classes coming up in New Jersey, New York, stuff like that, you know. But I got a lot to do too. It's like I need to stick around. We're doing solar training center stuff. And then we're also, it's going to be the 2026 NEC pretty soon. It's going to come
Dun, dun,
out,
dun.
you know, not too long. I mean, less than 6 months. And then it's like book writing time. And then eventually, I think NABCEP's going to switch to the 2023 NEC for their exams. You probably know more about that than I do.
Well, we have committees for that.
Yep. And I was on one of those committees, the PVIP, a while back. And once they do the switch, it'll be like time to rewrite classes and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I kind of don't really need to go anywhere.
But you're going to.
Yeah. Yep. Got to go there.
Yeah.
Got to bring
Yeah.
mom to
You gotta live
China.
the life.
Yep.
Hey, the
Mhm.
only thing, there's no past, there's no future, there's only now. So
Mhm.
whatever you can do right now, wherever that now is, that's what you do.
Yep. Let's be here now, man. Ram Dass it.
Have you seen that on Netflix?
No, I saw Ram Dass, though, give a talk in San Diego one time.
You're in California. You where all the cool stuff is. I'm in Indiana. I am where corn and soy is.
Well, you can make it cool. Make Indiana cool.
Yeah, I should start a transcendental meditation. You know, the trans, I could talk to you for hours. I went to a training in Iowa City, and I was thinking, there's nothing in Iowa City. The Transcendental Meditation Center is there. Their college is there. That's what made me think about it. Then, while I was there, I'm listening to Stevie Wonder, And he talks about how transcendental meditation makes you better. I was like, this is serendipitous. Maybe I should log into here. But anyway, so we're fractional trainers. Sean's going to be busy for the next 1,000 years. He's
Yeah, longevity too. Yeah, 1,000 years.
yeah, you're going to be busy for 1,000 years. You're not going to Chicago. You're not going to Intersolar there, but I'll be there somehow, some
Oh, you
way.
never know. Now I'll go figure it out. Go look at the
Yeah,
calendar.
now you go figure it out.
hmm
And
I think though some of those conferences they don't have the turnout, so it doesn't support like a NEC class. I think I've talked to
yeah,
them
but,
about that.
but I think also you'd have to look at the adoptions that Cook County NEC book has
hmm
because it's a little specific. And
Cook County,
yeah,
that's like Chicago, right?
yes, Cook County is like that greater Chicago area, which has
Yeah.
like 8.5 million people.
All right. Yeah.
And that's it.
Cool.
I'll be dropping my class in the next 2 weeks and consulting. Like people are calling me.
All right. Cool. Well, let's say to everyone, thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To find out more, to get yourself edumacated, or at least to be a little bit silly while you're getting educated, you go to solarsean.com. You can check out where I'm going to be, what kind of courses I have online, how to get yourself NABCEP certified, and you can go to Emmitt's website, Solar Energy for Consumers, and tell all your consumer buddies to talk to Emmitt before they pull the trigger on any kind of PV system. Right, Emmitt?
Or if you're an installer, you should give this to your customers to let them know you're above
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing too. Yeah. Just like
Yeah.
getting NABCEP certified, that's also a good thing to let your customers know. All right.
Yep.
Over and out.
Till next time, peace.
Woo!